Sisi tuko nyuma ya baba. Baba ya nani? Wewe una baba kwenu? Unakuja kutafuta mtu anatangatanga kwa barabara unaita baba. Wewe umekosa baba ya kwako.
Kenyans are still reeling from the shocking defeat of Raila Amolo Odinga in Addis-Ababa because many had got the hopes that this time round it is coming home. In all the elections that have happened in the country, Raila has always opined that his votes and victory have been taken by the powers that be. Not only that, Raila's supporters have always witnessed betrayal in almost every successive regime. After 2002, when Raila declared Kibaki Tosha, they signed a secret MOU where Raila Odinga was supposed to become the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. I think that will be the second one after Jomo Kenyatta. Later, Kibaki said, hizo zilikuwa pepa, hakuna kitu hapo. And Raila faced, I think, one of the very deep betrayal in his life. And then in 2007, he stood against Kibaki and many believe he won. Now, today, many people are still asking, what might have led to Raila's loss? Because Raila's got personal friends. In fact, just before he launched his bid to become the African Union Commission chairperson, the emissary that brought the message to Kenyans was none other than the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. And this was just after Raila had led very fierce protest against Ruto's government. And it is believed Ruto invoked the powers of the international community that came and talked to Raila, tafadhali, let Ruto implement his agenda, then we'll support you to go for the African Union Commission. How he lost is still a mirage to many people. Some people are associating this loss to William Ruto. Others are saying that maybe they just didn't do enough. Others are saying that maybe all along the Francophone countries have been voting together. In fact, in the history of the African Union Commission chairperson, there is only one lady from South Africa who is a Christian. All the others are Muslims. And they will continue to bully the other African countries. And this one needs to be looked at. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Ngunyi Mutahi is saying something here that I want us to look at. And Ngunyi Mutahi is asking a very simple question, because I also want to tell you why Babu believes that this is a continuation of a long con from Uhuru Kenyatta to this. Ngunyi is saying this: what is the riddle behind Raila's loss today at AUC? What is the riddle? I have no idea, but I am looking at the big picture. Ruto did his best. You cannot argue with that. But the gods were not on our side. Why? Look at what Ngunyi Mutahi is saying. The gods were not on our side. Why? And the gods that he's talking about are gods with a small g. You know, for Christians, we believe there is only one God with capital G. And the reason why I'm reading this before I go to Babu's tweet, for those who follow this channel, I once told you a short story about a story from Greek mythology of a man who is believed to have been cast by the gods to roll a particular stone from the base or from the bottom of a mountain all the way to the top of the mountain, then push that stone to the other end. But the story records that anytime he managed to roll this stone to the top of the mountain, he was unable to push it to the other side. Every now and then, the stone would roll back, and the man would climb down to start the process. And the story opines that that was a curse that that man had to live with for the entire life as long as he lived. In fact, sometimes back when Ngunyi Mutahi used to write, on Sundays, Ngunyi Mutahi had an article in the Nation newspaper on Sundays. He once wrote this story and he likened it to Raila. We mean no offense, but one is tempted to imagine that maybe the gods have refused. How can you explain, for example, that in 2007, Kibaki, after Raila had given him a margin of, I don't know, a million or two, we went to sleep and when we woke up, the gap had been narrowed to, I don't know, 200,000, and Kibaki's strongholds were still coming. Kibaki won with only but one province. How do you explain that? How do you explain what happened in 2013 and 2017? And how do you explain 2022 when Raila had the deep state? If you put all those explanations together, you will realize that the gods have refused, and I could be wrong. The gods have refused. Now, Babu Owino is saying this, that this is a continuation of a long con. If you know, you know. You know, Babu Owino is one person who has always reckoned that Uhuru Kenyatta wanted to maintain Baba, just to manage him. Uhuru Kenyatta wanted to manage Baba for the 5 years that they had a handshake. Because the first thing that Uhuru did was to promise Raila that I'm going to support you come 2022. Knowing very well that yes, he was able to support Raila, but what about the community where he's coming from, the Murima? They blatantly rejected Raila. But people have been asking, where was the deep state? The role of the deep state was only to ensure that votes were not rigged. In fact, Uhuru should have done enough to ensure that the story of Jose Camargo was nowhere. Do you remember, if I jog your mind, that Jose Camargo was apprehended at the airport with election materials? What more evidence did we really need? Who appointed, or rather selected, the policemen that were manning Bomas when we thought that Uhuru Kenyatta and Matiani were in charge, and the police in Bomas were being headed by the Deputy Inspector General? A story for another day. So Babu still believes, together with others, that this was a long con from Uhuru Kenyatta, because he should have averted any kind of election malpractice. Babu, together with Robert Alai, believe that Uhuru conned Raila. But when it comes to Ruto, Robert Alai seems to have picked a bone to chew with Uhuru and the entire Murima. And he does not believe that Ruto can behave the same. So Babu feels this is a long con, a continuation of a long con from Ruto. But when it comes to Ruto, Robert Alai feels that we would rather deal with Ruto than Uhuru Kenyatta and the Murima. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there are several theories. We don't need to repeat here that Ruto made a mistake even before Ruto proposed, because I think the policy demands that your president must propose you if you want to bid to be an African Commission chairperson. It is the president that must propose you. I know there's a policy that gives you room to do it on your own, but since the sitting presidents are the ones who are supposed to vote, it's good when you're proposed by a president. We know, and we don't need to repeat, that when William Ruto made a comment and took a position on the DRC conflict, he lost it. When he took sides and supported very openly Israel, he lost it. And many experts are saying that perhaps we lacked diplomacy. We went there as we looked bullish. Look at the number of MPs that we carried there compared to the other candidates who seem to be very humble. That might have cost us. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm one person who has bought the theory of our gods. Because I know there are other factors like rigging, Meg Whitman, and the support of the USA. But all this can only add up to one thing, that the gods have refused. Now I want to ask one question. Life must move on. Raila has to continue with his good work. As he comes back to the country, he has promised that there's a lot waiting for him. The question is, what is this good work that Raila must continue with? I see there is a lot of pressure that Raila should contest. If you ask me, I don't want Raila to engage in active politics again. He must step aside and let another generation take over. Gen Zs and many people do not understand what Raila has done to the nation, because the only history that they have is that Raila betrayed the Gen Zs. I also feel that Raila betrayed Gen Zs, but I believe, or it's my conviction, that despite the fact that he betrayed Gen Zs, it cannot erase all the other good things that he has done. Because even the freedom to demonstrate, the freedom of picketing, the freedom that we can now get a chance to talk about the president, to criticize, Gen Zs are now, creating caricatures of William Ruto. Those are freedoms that Raila, together with many other gallant Kenyans, fought for. You can disagree, but it is a fact that you cannot take away from him. So with all the things that Raila has done, a good dancer knows when to exit the stage, and I believe it is now. The question is, if Raila has to exit, what next for him? I believe Raila, even if you push him to contest, he will not be the president of this country. Why? Raila can defeat all the other candidates. But I have a problem with Raila's attitude of being a statesman. Gen Zs wamefenya Ruto anamwambia, mtu anataka kuchukua serikali yangu, anaungana nao. And that is the problem. Anashinda, alafu victory yake inachukuliwa wakati amepeleka watu wako kwa street na kukaribu kufika pale finishing line, he retreats. Why? Amepelekwa pale mochari na ameona vile watu wamekufa, and then he retreats. And when he does that, it's too late, because kuna parents ambao watoto wao wameuawa, and you wonder, it's difficult to become a Raila. Do I continue and people are being killed, and if I stop, the others whose children have been killed are also saying ungeendelea because tumewawa? It's very difficult. Raila cannot contest. If you ask me, it's not a good idea. Raila has got just one option: to become a kingmaker. Just the same way he did Kibaki Tosha. It should be a Tosha moment for Raila today. He must endorse someone. He can choose to continue endorsing Kasongo as we head to 2027 and hand over the voting block to him. Or he can endorse Uhuru's candidate, who is Mutihi, or endorse Kalonzo Musyoka. There are several: Kalonzo, Mutihi, Martha Karua, Okiya Mutata. If I have to use elimination method, Uhuru Kenyatta never did enough to help Raila. Or he did enough, but he didn't help him avoid the election malpractice. William Ruto has also done enough, but Raila has not captured the African Union Commission seat. Kalonzo Musyoka has supported Raila for a period of 15 years. And if I were to look for someone to endorse, Raila should endorse Kalonzo Musyoka. And don't tell me Kalonzo is watermelon. Don't tell me Kalonzo is not doing enough. That is his nature. You cannot force Kalonzo to be Raila. And I have a strong feeling Raila arudisha mikono. Kalonzo has a support base behind him. Kalonzo can defeat William Ruto if he is supported. financially, and all the if all the other candidates rally behind him, he can defeat Kasongo. And if you believe that he needs strong candidates behind him, people like Natembeya and Martha Karua and Raila and Matiang'i should now, and Okia Mutata should now work with him and endorse him, and you give them Maraga. But I personally believe that Raila should now endorse Kalonzo Musyoka, and I could be wrong. Hii mambo ya kusema Kalonzo hawezi, hapana. Kalonzo anaweza. Do you believe it was a long con? Because personally, I don't know. What I believe is that the gods have refused. The question I cannot answer, why have the gods refused? As Ngunyi Mutahi says, the country is divided. ODM is divided. There is a school of thought that is pushing Raila to continue supporting Kasongo. But there is another bitter grouping within ODM that is saying Ruto has tainted himself so much that it is difficult to sell him in a free and verifiable election when the platform in a level playing ground, he cannot win. But I like one thing. Raila ndiye alikuwa ile dudu ya kushtua Mount Kenya. Today they have managed to kugeuza the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua ndio dudu ya kushtua Wajaluo. Immediately Raila lost and people were trying to blame William Ruto. Washaenda kwa Twitter wanasema pana ni Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto ni mweupe kama pamba. Why? Because they're saying, oh, Gachagua alikuwa anataka kutuua, Gachagua alikuwa anataka kuua Raila. By the way, I have never liked Gachagua's behavior when he used to warn Raila, when he used to be in charge of Gen Z, mistreatment. Ruto alikuwa anamtumia wakati watu wanaenda maandamano, yeye ana fly nje ya country, and who remains in charge? Rigathi Gachagua. And Rigathi, because power had gotten into his head, anaenda kwa ofisi asubuhi, ana prepare, and look, you remember the warning that he gave, that they will deal decisively with protesters once and for all, and never will anyone ever think of protest. Many people interpreted that as a plot to kill. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a feeling that Raila should tell his supporters the direction. And this time round, there are people who might not listen to him, because people are going to look at each and every leader by his past development record. Tumepewa mashatani wote hapo, Ruto, Kalonzo, Matiang'i. Tutawachambua moja moja. I don't know what you think. Do you think it was a long con? And if it is a long con, then Raila must be too careful not to get into another con game, because he's being subjected to ridicule. Sasa wanasema huyu jamaa hauziki, unajaribu kumuuza, iwezekani. Wakati huu hakuna mtu aliiba kura yake, lakini walimkataa. It's very sad. Raila must learn that Kasongo has really messed him up. Kasongo messed him locally wakati ali interfere na Gen Z's protest. And people are saying, how can you support Adani, support those bad policies, and you support Kasongo when Kenya is tired of him? At the international level, Kasongo is also reducing Raila Amolo Odinga to almost nothing. I don't know what to think, but Raila must have a paradigm shift and do something differently.